And hello, everybody. Good evening and happy Storytime Tuesday. So, last time we were streaming, it didn't go quite as well as I would have hoped. We were having some definite issues with things sending across well, and we were having lag issues and all sorts of stuff. So hopefully, knock on wood, we find ourselves in a much better position this evening. As tonight, we will be diving into the final two chapters of Blue Adept. Of course, if you have not listened already, if you have not caught up anything else, youtube.com/@SirArmenius. You can catch all of the previous chapters as well as all of the books that I have read and recorded for your listening pleasure. Enjoy as you see fit. Well, hello. Well. That's a lot of wells. Good evening. How are you? So, as always, let's do a little recap of what happened in our last. I had to make some changes in here. I realized I probably had Meld set it too high. So for anybody who doesn't know, I am streaming on Meld Studios now. Meld Studios allows me to broadcast to lots of different platforms. For example, tonight we are on TikTok, we are on YouTube, we are on Twitch, we are on Kick. So we are across the board in a lot of places right now. Meld allows me to do that with without any additional cost. It go right through the software to be able to do it. So I've been using Meld for a little bit now, and I thought I had it set up how I had OBS set up. When I compared the two of them, I realized I had my encoder set up a little bit wrong. I also had my FPS set a little bit wrong. I don't normally have it set at 60. My computer's good, but it's not necessarily strong enough to be able to have a high encoder with a 60 FPS streaming out to all of you guys on the different platforms. So I made some changes. It's now at a 30 FPS. I changed the encoder around a little bit, so we should be in better shape. When I just checked, so one of the problems I was running into was Meld Studios was taking up something like 50 to 60% of my CPU capacity. It's now at 13, which means we are in much better shape. It also means that hopefully we are not seeing any frames dropped as we go through. Again, knock on wood. That would be the goal, is to not have any frames dropping as we go through. And so hopefully that is what we are seeing. And hopefully it's not overheating my computer quite as much as it was, because when I was using up basically all of my CPU, it was getting toasty on it. So ideally, everything is working the way it should be working now. So let's talk a little bit about what happened in Chapter 10, because we got to a good part of the story. For 2 books now, Stile has been searching for his anonymous enemy that lasered his knees, that has been trying to kill him, that he believes killed his other self. And he has been trying to figure out who this person is. And earlier in the book, we finally found out that it was the Red Adept. That is who the eventual determination was that was doing all of this to him. So he has gone in there, and in chapter 10, he finally engages with the Red Adept and goes through her domain. So one thing, as you guys stick with me tonight, you will hear me refer to either a domain or a domain. Same word, but it's depending on what accent I'm using at that time is going to depend on how I actually pronounce it. Because in older English, demean. In present day English, you would normally say domain or domain. And so in case you guys are curious what word that is that I am talking about, let's see if I can copy it and paste it. Copy. Paste. And of course it puts in. So this is the word that I am talking about. And so you'll hear me pronounce it either way. So, but he finally goes to the Red Adept domain, which is a gigantic funhouse. Kind of cool, huh? So it's a gigantic funhouse, and basically it is designed to stop people from bothering the Red Adept by they go through carnival games, and if they win, or when they play, they're going to win, because that's the way it's rigged to be. When they win, they're given an amulet. If they invoke the amulet will basically try to kill them. Her entire castle is pretty much made up of lots and lots of amulets, which are set off by anybody using magic around them or invoking them, which Stile finds out to his dismay as he's going through, because as he casts magic to do things, he finds that he's invoking amulets that then try to kill him. He eventually makes it all the way through. He had cast a flying spell on himself at one point, and continuing magic wasn't setting it off. It's only the new invocation of magic that was setting it off. So eventually he is able to fly pretty much all the way through and get to the Red Adept. The Red Adept and him have a conversation, because, of course, who doesn't have that conversation with their mortal enemy? And comes to find out that she only was attacking because she was told that she would be destroyed by Blue. And she was told that by the Oracle. Okay, that is just not working. Live Studio is not working for TikTok, so we're just going to drop that. And so she preemptively attacks. And they don't know who kind of sicked the Oracle on Stile. They don't know what was the cause of a lot of this. And so they make a pact that whoever ends up winning will try to figure out what's going on. But in the meantime, they're going to fight. So they start fighting. Stile realizes that the entire place is set up with amulets. He can't really cast his magic. He also finds out that the Red Adept, during their conversation, is also a curtain traveler and is competing in the games and is a gamesman as well. So they're fairly well matched in a lot of the stuff. He eventually gets her to retreat. She goes through a door, slams the door shut, and disappears. And that is essentially where we will pick up on our reading this evening. So we are going to dive into the Blue Adept. We are going to start in Chapter 11. We'll be going through Chapter 11 and Chapter 12 this evening. And those are the last two chapters in the book. So, sit back, everybody. Relax and prepare to enjoy. As a reminder, I do not engage with the audience while I am actively reading, because I'm recording at the same time. But we can absolutely chat in between chapters. So, sit back, relax, and prepare to enjoy as we dive into another evening of Blue Adept. Chapter 11. Trap. Now was the time to use his magic. "Trace her place," he sang, and a new light appeared, leading the way into the passage. "Fret the threat," he added, to abate whatever nasty little surprises lurked along the passage. This wouldn't stop them all, but it should help. A little alertness should do the rest. Stile charged into the passage, following the light. Then the light stopped, but the Red Adept wasn't there. Baffled, Stile retraced his steps. He squinted at the glow from one side and the other. "The curtain," Nasa said. She was back in girl form. Now he saw it, the faint shimmer of the curtain across the passage. What a neat device. No enemy confined to Phaze could follow her there. He had little time if he was to catch her. "Nasa, I must go through. He could not find the words to tell her what he had to. His gratefulness for her vital help and support right up to this moment. His continued need of it, but the impossibility of having it in proton frame. Unless she could cross in girl form, but then she would be fixed in that form, unable to revert to natural status, and highly vulnerable in the unfamiliar world. No, he did not want her there. So he simply grabbed her and kissed her. "Make a spell for me to follow," she said. Good idea. In fact, why not put tracers on both himself and the Red Adept? If this device worked, he could check with Nasa every time he lost track of his enemy, and receive guidance. That would ensure his success. His magic was more versatile than Red's. He might not be able to abolish her by a direct spell, but he could at least track her. Maybe. The present glow tracker was designed to follow where Red had gone. It was balked by the curtain, so hovered there helplessly. Stile hesitated to step through at the same spot. No telling what Red had in store there for the unwary. A small demon animal blundered down the hall, one of the animated amulets, running late. Stile and Nasa flattened themselves against the wall and let it pass. The thing wandered on past the curtain, never perceiving it, seeking escape from the red domain. It turned the far corner, and there was an explosion. "Methinks she set a trap for us," Stile murmured. Probably his counterspell would have protected him, but he could not be certain. Following too closely after the Red Adept was dangerous. "Take me to safe ground while I ponder new spells," he said. Nasa took him by the hand and led him, while Stile concentrated fully on the task at hand. Soon they were standing on the ground outside the Red Castle, and he had what he needed. But first, one concern. "Nasa, I know thou dost not like magic applied to thee." She blew him a look of "get on with it," as he had known she would. She had once hated his practice of magic, but after she had accepted his status as the Blue Adept, she had seemed to revel in the evidences of his power. "Identify the one we scorn by orienting with thy horn," Stile sang to her. Nasa, still in girl form, turned her head with its tiny decoration horn toward the south, obviously aware of the Red Adept. "And trace thine oath, friend, without fail, by orienting with thy tail." She spun about, slapping her pert derriere with her hand as if stung by a fly. Her lack of a tail in this form was a problem. Then she converted to unicorn, and it worked perfectly. "Let me step across the curtain, and do thou trace me," Stile said, "just to be sure." This was consuming time while Red escaped, but if this operated the way he hoped, that wouldn't matter. Stile spelled himself across, ran 100 meters over the sand, and crossed back, gasping for the good air of Phaze. Nasa was right there, some 300 feet from her starting point, her pretty black tail facing him. It worked. "Good enough," Stile exclaimed. "Thou canst now trace us both, even across the curtain. I will check with thee whenever I lose her. If she recrosses, we will have her. I shall see thee anon." And he passed through the curtain again, setting off in the direction Nasa had pointed for the Red Adept. No traps out here, but this was Proton, and outside a dome. Quickly the rarefied and polluted air affected him. The Red Adept seemed to be within the dome, which of course was her Proton home. Stile would have no safe access there. He found the curtain and passed back through. Nasa was there, having paced him neatly. "I've got to organize for this better," he said. "It's certain she's organized. I'm not safe to go after her in her Proton home." He paced in a circle for a moment. Even his 2 brief excursions into the atmosphere of Proton had depleted him. Inside the dome, the air would be good, but she would have power he lacked. Her citizen mother might not like Red, but would act to protect the dome against intrusions by hostile serfs. I need to smoke her out, then chase her down in neutral territory. I'd better enlist Sheen's help in the other frame, but I don't want to take mine eye off the prey, so I'll need to call her. Yes. He walked to the spot where he had seen a tube connection to the dome. There would be a communication screen at the transport terminal. He spelled himself through. Certain spells were elementary. He didn't even have to rhyme. Just an originally phrased wish sufficed, for him or any eligible person. He had wasted a number of rhymes before catching on to this. In a moment he was in the station. There was good air here. He called Sheen. She appeared immediately on the screen. "So soon? Game is tomorrow." "Come to this address," Stile said. "I may need help." The screen went blank. Red had intercepted the call. He should have known she would not be sitting idle. He might have avoided her little traps along the way by declining to pursue her directly, but she knew he would come for her here. He had made a tactical error. Stile dived for the curtain. A nozzle started hissing out vapor as he moved. Some sort of gas. Probably stun gas. Red seemed to like that sort of thing. Had she known precisely where and when he would appear, she could have nailed him. As it was a close call. He got a whiff of it as he crossed the curtain, and reeled as he emerged in Phaze. Nasa steadied him with her solid body, and in a moment his head cleared. "Good thing I stayed close to the curtain," he said. "I'm going to have to create a distraction so she won't spy me next time. The Oracle says Blue will destroy Red. I'll start the process now. Let me have my harmonica." Nasa shifted to girl form. She now wore a little knapsack over her dress. She manifested clothed or naked at will, in which she carried Stile's harmonica and other oddments. Stile had never quite fathomed how she was able to carry foreign objects on her human body that disappeared when she changed form, yet were not lost. She could change to firefly form while carrying his harmonica, though it was far larger than the firefly, and have no trouble. He kept discovering new aspects of magic that made little sense in scientific terms. And of course, magic did not make scientific sense. If it did, it wouldn't be magic. So he just had to accept the impossible things happened magically and let it be. He took the harmonica and played a brooding, powerful theme. For this job, the platinum flute might have been better, but that had never really been his. He hoped Clef was getting along with the mound folk all right, and wondered whether the musician really could be the foreordained they wanted, and if so, in what manner he was destined to save Phaze. Sometimes Stile had the feeling that he was just one thread in a complex skein, doing whatever it was he was fated to do, with no more free will than a robot had. So many seemingly coincidental things had happened to him, but of course he could be manufacturing a pattern for nothing. Clef might not be the foreordained. The mountain might not tremble when he played the flute. So Stile's encounter with him would have been no more than the randomness it appeared to be. His magic was now intense. He concentrated on the Red Castle. Make of this, the Red Demesne, a holocaust, a wreck obscene. They watched. The entire structure shimmered. Smoke appeared. The remaining creatures associated with it scrambled out as if fleeing something horrible. Behind them licked tongues of greenish flame. The smoke expanded, bursting out windows in its urgency to breathe free. Gouts of it roiled up in burgeoning masses resembling the grotesque heads of goblins. Then the explosions came. Whole walls shoved outward. Partitions sailed flaming in wide arcs to crash and splinter in minor puffs of fire. Rockets of light shot out, and sprays of burning fog. All colors were represented, but gradually red predominated. This was the home of the Red Adept, after all. That should give her something to think about, Stile said. I really don't like such destruction, but I must destroy the entire works of the Red Adept. I mean to leave no springboard for her to wreak her mischief again. He thought once more of Hulk and Bluette. Had she survived? He hoped so, though he did not want to deal with her directly. What grief Red had brought upon her, merely to try to trap him, Stile. Yes, Red had to be destroyed. The pyrotechnics continued at the castle, reducing it steadily to the obscene wreck specified by the spell. Meanwhile, Stile stepped back across the curtain, checking to see whether Sheen had arrived. He avoided the gassed station, knowing that Sheen would check for him outside. He came back to Phaze for air, then checked Proton again. On his third crossover, he spied her. She ran to him, opening her chest compartment to bring out an oxygen mask for him so that he could handle the Proton outdoor air. Quickly, he explained the situation. So what I have in mind is to interrupt the power to the dome field generator, he concluded. Can you get me a heavy-duty cutting laser? Sheen smiled. She opened her compartment again and presented him with a compact, protonite-powered, portable metal-cutting laser unit and a power cable locator. Bless you, Stile exclaimed, kissing her, then replacing the mask. They walked across the desert, searching out the cable. Stile was apprehensive that someone would think to look outside the dome and would spot them, but that was a chance they had to take. Citizens and serfs of Proton were very much dome-oriented, and simply ignored the outer world as if it did not exist. That might help. This should not take long. The force fields that formed the air-enclosing domes drew a lot of power. Such heavy-duty cables were easy to locate. Soon, they found it. Stile aimed the laser cutter down and turned it on. The sand bubbled into glass as the beam plunged into it. It formed a glass-lined hole leading down to the shielded cable. Then it cut through the cable itself, casing and insulation and all, centimeter by centimeter. There was a flash from the hole. Air puffed from the dome in decompression. The force field was gone. "I think she will be out presently," Stile said with grim satisfaction. "Now I have sworn to kill her, but I want to be fair about it. I don't want you to do the job for me. Since there are regulations against the execution of serfs by serfs in the frame of Proton, I need to drag her into Phaze. Maybe we can bring her to trial there and put her away ethically. So you leave it to me, but keep an eye on me, because I don't expect Red to pass up any advantage or ploy, legal or illegal, that she thinks will work. She'll try to keep our feud private, because if the citizens investigate her connection to Hulk's murder, she'll be exiled from Proton. So this is private between us, and I don't want to be the victim of cheating." "Your logic is human," Sheen said wryly. "If I weren't programmed to love you..." "Get on with it. Get a vehicle or something." "Bluet's employer has launched an investigation. Very soon he will obtain a transcript of Hulk's experience." She walked toward the shuttle tube. The gas would have no effect on her, and she would be able to use the communication screen to contact her friends. So, Bluet's employer was taking action. Red was already getting into trouble on Proton, but that didn't change his own need to deal with her. Stile ran on into the dome area, now a shambles from the abrupt decompression. With luck, he could catch Red during this initial period of confusion. All the occupants should be gasping, looking for long-neglected oxygen equipment, not paying attention to anything except their personal discomfort. But as he entered, a vehicle charged out. A sand buggy with a bubble top, painted red. She was taking off. Stile ran for the cellar section. Maybe there would be another vehicle. He had to have some way to follow. There were 3 other vehicles, all in flames. Red had made sure she would not be pursued. Well, he had another avenue. Stile hurried to the curtain and stepped through, removed his abruptly inoperative oxygen mask, and looked about. Nasa was there, of course, pointing the way. "I'll spell myself to a spot ahead of her, then recross," Stile said. But the unicorn nudged him, blowing a negative note. She wouldn't let him go alone. "All right, we should stay together," Stile agreed. "But I don't want to wear the out chasing after a Proton car. I'll have to enhance the trip by magic." Nasa still was not keen on magic practice on herself, but accepted this as she had the horn tail enchantment, with equine grace. We two proceed with smiles, Red's direction, 50 miles. That made it possible to overshoot Red's position and land ahead, which was where he wanted to be. They moved rapidly across the landscape, as they had when leaving the White Domain. In a moment they were there. It was a pleasant enough glade east of the Red Domain. Nasa's directional horn pointed west. They had outdistanced the quarry. "All I have to do now is cross back and intercept her and..." Stile stopped. Oh no! For the curtain was nowhere near there. "Well, we'll just have to pace her until she intersects the curtain," Stile said. They paced away, moving near the limit of the unicorn's capacity. It was a strange business, because away from the curtain, they could not see Red at all. Only Nasa's horn pointed out her location in the parallel world. It was like following a ghost. A ghost? Stile wondered whether there was a similar curtain effect on other worlds. Back on planet Earth, when the legends were being formed, could a curtain have accounted for the perception of ghosts? People or creatures that were and were not present. So much seeming fantasy could be accounted for if... Then Stile spied the curtain. "This is it," he said. He tore off his clothes and set his mask back in place as he spelled himself through. Red had evidently been heading for this intersection with the curtain. The car was slowing. It swerved almost immediately to charge him. Was she trying to drive him back across the curtain? Stile distrusted that, so he stayed put. The car had 4 choices. It could swerve to the left to catch him as he dodged that way, or to the right, or go straight ahead on the assumption that he would risk standing still, or it could stop. He doubted it would stop. She intended to smash him if she could, and make him step back across the curtain otherwise. She made a good effort. She feinted slightly to the left, then to the right, trying to provoke his motion. Stile stood still, and the car accelerated straight at him. At the last moment, Stile leaped up. The car was sleek and low, more powerful than the dune buggy he had at first conjectured. It passed right under him. Sometimes it paid to be an acrobat. He landed neatly in the swirl of sand the vehicle had stirred up without even a twinge from his bad knees. Now he saw another vehicle approaching. That would be Sheen, having obtained a car from her friends. No wonder Red was in a hurry. Any delay, and the pursuit would catch up. But why had Red wanted him out of Proton? If she planned to cross the curtain, why force him to cross too, when she knew he had the advantage in Phaze? That didn't seem to make much sense. Stile got ornery when unsatisfied. Red was up to something, and wanted him out of the way so she could do whatever it was, and so he had better stay right on her. He hailed the second car, and sure enough, it was Sheen. She slowed to pick him up, then accelerated after the fleeing car. Sheen's car was larger and faster. Her friends had provided well. Stile did not inquire how they had produced it so quickly. Some computer entry had surely been made to account for its use. They zoomed over the sand at some 100 to 110 kilometers per hour, a velocity even NASA could not match. In Phaze, she would have to run 60 to 70 miles an hour cross-country. She might facilitate things by changing to firefly form to cross the worst of it, but she would inevitably fall behind. A huge plume of dust swirled up behind each car. Before long, they had closed in on Red's vehicle, traveling a little to the side so as to be clear of her comet-like wake. That dust served to emphasize the barrenness that was Proton, a world that science had improved into desolation. Red cut southeast, angling toward the Purple Mountain Range. Where was she going? "Do we have any way to bring her to a stop?" Stile asked. "I don't like her getting too far ahead of NASA, in case we have action on the other side of the curtain." "Oh yes, this is an attack vehicle. We can fire a disruptor to short out her electrical system." "That's ideal!" But now Red's car shot into a channel in the mountain. It slewed through a curvaceous pass and up a barren slope. Sheen's car followed, but could not get a direct shot at it. Now, directly behind, they suffered the full effect of the dust wake. Red obviously was familiar with this region. Sheen and Stile were not. On they skewed, wending through the mountain foothills and gullies at dangerously high velocity, never getting a clean shot. "I don't like this," Stile said. "She thinks in terms of traps, things that wait quiescent until invoked. She'll have something set up here." "I can call my friends on the car's band and ask them to." "No! They have to maintain their anonymity. A clerical error freed this car. That's as far as they can go. It's my job." "No, they do not need to resort to supposed error. There are ways to—" "No. I believe I have remarked on your defective living logic before. I believe so, Stile agreed. Do you have any assurance at all that you will survive this foolishness? Yes. The oracle says that I will sire a son by the Lady Blue, whom I just married. And since I have not yet, the car began to ride up the side of the channel. You married the Lady Blue? Oops. He had forgotten the ramification that would have on this side of the curtain. I did? She brought the car back to level, but the course seemed none too steady. Then it is over between us. No, not over, just modified. We're still friends. With a machine? With a machine, he shouted. You're still a person. I still love you as a person. She accelerated, closing the gap that had opened between vehicles, though the dust obscured almost everything. Yes, of course. And Stile knew that whatever he had gained in Phaze had been at a necessary cost in Proton. The next stage in his inevitable alienation from Sheen had come to pass. They had known this would happen, but still, it hurt. I don't suppose you'd settle for an oath of friendship? He asked, with an attempt at lightness. I am less complicated than a living creature like Nasa. Oaths are not part of my programming. Stile was spared the embarrassment of struggling further with this dialogue by their sudden encounter with Red's car. She had drawn it up in an emergency stop just around a turn in the channel and jettisoned herself with the emergency release. Now her stalled vehicle blocked the way at a narrow neck, impossible to avoid. Stile saw her running up the steep slope, getting clear of the inevitable crash. The trap had been sprung. Sheen's finger moved with mechanical speed and precision, touching a button on the dashboard. The ejection mechanism operated. Stile was hurled in his seat out the top of the car. A gravity diffuser clicked on, softening his fall, letting him float to the ground. The moving car collided with the stationary one. Both exploded. A ball of flame encompassed the mass, and smoke billowed outward. Protonite didn't detonate like that. Red's vehicle must have been booby-trapped with explosives. It had been a trap, all right. Then Stile realized he was alone. Sheen! He cried in anguish. Why didn't you eject too? But he knew why. She had wanted to be junked cleanly when she lost him. She had seen to it herself. He knew there was nothing he could do for her. It was Red he had to go after. He shucked his car seat and charged across to intercept the Adept. She had a hand weapon. She pointed it at him. Stile dived, taking advantage of the irregularity of the ground. The laser beam seared the sand ahead of him, sending up a puff of acrid fumes. Then he crawled rapidly to the side, grabbing a small rock and hurled it at her. He did this without lifting his head or body. He could throw accurately by sound. But she too had moved, crossing to get a shot from a better vantage. Only Stile's continuing motion saved him from getting lasered. But now he too was armed, with a number of good throwing rocks. He could throw them rapidly and with excellent effect, when the target presented itself, if he did not become the target of the laser first. They maneuvered, watching, listening, stalking. Red was no amateur at this. She knew how to stay out of trouble, and she had the superior weapon. He would have to catch her by surprise, score with a rock before she could bring her laser to bear, and close for the finish. It was a challenge similar to certain games, and he was good at this type of thing too. But she had the advantage of weapon and familiarity with the terrain. Nevertheless, he outmaneuvered her, got in a good location, and prepared for attack. He wanted to knock her out with a score on the head, but his stones were too light for certainty. he was more likely to stun her momentarily or injure her and have to take it to hand-to-hand combat. So be it. Too bad he had not brought his sword across the curtain. But he could do a lot of damage to a human body, barehanded, in a very short time. He watched for his moment, then made his move. He rose up and hurled his first stone. His aim was good. It glanced off her head, making her cry out. But her thick red hair had cushioned it somewhat. The stone only gashed her, not seriously. Then she leaped and disappeared. The curtain! The curtain was here, and she had used it. In this respect, too, she had been better prepared than he. He charged across to it and willed himself after her. Suddenly the mountain greened about him. He stood on verdant turf, with patches of purple flowers decorating the slopes. The air was warm and fragrant. Red was still reeling from the blow of the stone. Blood colored her hand where she had touched the gash, and her hair was becoming matted. But when she saw him, she raised the laser and fired at point-blank range. Of course, it didn't work. The curtain was not the demarcation of worlds, but of frames, modes of energy application. She was getting rattled, making mistakes now. Stile hurled another rock at her. His weapon was good in either frame. But she dodged the rock and brought out an amulet. Where she had carried it, he didn't know, since she was naked, as serfs had to be in the other frame. "Invoke!" she cried. The amulet expanded into a ravening griffin, body of lion, head and wings of eagle. It oriented on Stile and leaped. Stile spelled himself hastily back through the curtain. He was in proton again, inhaling oxygen through the mask. How bleak this frame was. Smoke still drifted up from the wrecked vehicles. Sheen had been there, suiciding rather than continue an animation that had become meaningless. Stile concentrated a moment, then willed himself back through the curtain. "Creature fly up into sky," he sang, and the griffin, just now turning on him after having overshot him, abruptly spread its wings and ascended. It was out of the fray. Stile launched himself at Red, who held another amulet. She had a flesh-toned compartment belt, he saw now, that held her assorted weapons. From a distance, she looked properly naked. He caught her hand and wrenched the amulet from her. "Invoke!" he cried. The amulet grew into a flying octopus. It reached hungrily for Red. Stile had realized before that there were malign amulets that attacked the invoker, and benign ones that fought on the side of the invoker. Since Stile had stopped invoking amulets, Red was using these benign ones against him. He had just stolen one and turned it against her. Now Red dived across the curtain, escaping the malice of her own creation. Stile went after her, and almost got clobbered by a rock. She was using his tactic against him now. He grappled with her. She was a foot taller than he, in this frame, about 30 centimeters, and had more mass. She was strong, too. A virtual Amazon, a naked tigress, eager to kill. Her claws gouged at his eyes, her knee rammed his groin. But Stile saw the smoking wreckage where Sheen had perished, and was a savage animal himself. Every person he held dear was being destroyed one way or another. He would destroy in turn. He was expert in several martial arts. He knew which nerves to pinch, the vulnerable spots to strike, the pressures that would disjoint which joints, on man or woman. He blocked her attack and concentrated on his own. Again, Red was overmatched, and realized it. She willed herself back into Phaze, and Stile went with her, not relenting. But here, her amulets functioned. She invoked one, and it hissed out of a bottle, a genie, a giant gaseous man, all head and arms. Quickly, Stile recrossed the curtain. He needed a spell to banish a genie, and another to take the offense. He might not be able to attack Red directly, but he could isolate her, or... Something was moving in the now almost quiescent wreckage of the two vehicles. Stile's attention was instantly distracted from the battle. Could it be? With timorous hope, he hurried over there. Yes, a shape was struggling to extricate itself. This was not the fantasy frame. It couldn't be a demon. Sheen? He called tentatively. Stile? Her voice came back, oddly distorted. Sheen, you survived! I thought... I am a machine. I am damaged, not yet defunct, unfortunately. Let me help you. Do not touch me. I am hot. She was indeed. As she completed her extrication, he saw the extent of the damage. Most of her superficial flesh had been burned away. Her face was rubble. Her lovely skin and hair had been stripped to reveal scorched metal, with dangling shreds of substance. Wings of smoke and steam drifted upward from her joints, and hot oil dripped from her chest cavity. She looked about as much like a corpse as a machine could. An animated corpse. A zombie. Sheen, we must get you to a repair shop. You... Go after Red Stile, she cried weakly. Do not let me distract you. I am no further use to you. If I did not have this damn self-preservation circuit that cut in... Still, he was torn. Once before she had suffered injury on his behalf, making him realize how important she was to him. Her damage this time was surely worse, though she remained animated. All of her surface had been charred by the flame, and she was probably operating ineffectively on the last dregs of her protonite charge. Yet it seemed that this merely reflected her emotional desolation, for she was programmed to love him, and never would be his lover again. Perhaps it would be kinder simply to allow her to expire. She was close to the end now. The thought triggered a savage reaction. Vengeance I have sworn, but it shall not take precedence over friendship, Stile said. Walk with me across the curtain. I can restore you there. The eyeless husk of a head oriented on him. The tattered remnant of her speaker spoke. You must not. Red will trap you. I think Red is already far from here. I've given her time enough to escape. She is less important than you. You must not give her time to set up. Sheen's voice failed at last. Her power was fading. Even protonite had finite limits. Walk, or I must carry you, Stile said sternly, knowing she would not allow him to harm himself by touching her burning surface. She walked with decreasing stability. Charred fragments fell from her. Something rattled and buzzed inside. Finally, she crashed forward, still smoking, but she was half across the curtain. Stile located an unsmoldered spot on her torso and touched his finger to it and willed them both across the curtain. The grass appeared, the air freshened, and her body sizzled in the greater moisture. He removed his finger before it burned. The Red Adept, as he had surmised, was gone. He had been besting her. She had wanted to escape all along, salvaging time and resources to meet him again in a situation more favorable to herself. He didn't like letting that happen, but he had been afraid that if he left Sheen too long, it might not be possible to restore her, or that he himself would die or lose power and be unable to return to her. If he had let her perish in favor of his vengeance, he would have sacrificed much of what he valued, his own humanity. He might have gone on to establish his power and security as the Blue Adept, and become more like the other adepts, corrupted by power, cynical, and selfish to the point of worthlessness. There was the sound of hooves. Nasa was catching up, fire snorting from her nostrils, bringing the harmonica just when he needed it. He would be able to use his magic to restore Sheen as he had before, and then would return her to Proton for reanimation. Maybe he could include a spell to make her feel better about the situation. Probably would not work, but it was at least worth a try. Then it would be time to set up for the next round of the tourney. Round 8 brought him up against a young woman of the age 22 ladder, a fair player whose skills he knew from prior experience. She was Tulip, a garden tender for a citizen who favored ornamentals. She was as pretty as a flower herself, and not averse to using her sex appeal to gain advantage. But Stile had no intention of prejudicing a likely victory by such dalliance. He put it into mental, and so nullified her choice of naked. No body contact sport this time. They wound up in word games. Travel from flesh to spirit, the game computer said. Time 5 minutes. Stile and Tulip got to work. The challenge was to fashion a chain of words linked alternately by synonyms and homonyms, converting flesh to spirit by readily definable stages. Both length and time counted. Within 5 minutes, the shortest viable chain would win. Beyond that time limit, the first person to establish any viable chain of any length would win. So it behooved them each to take up most of the 5 minutes to seek the shortest possible chain. To settle on a given chain too quickly would be to invite the opponent to come up with a shorter one within the time limit and win. To take too long beyond the time limit invited loss to a longer but sooner announced chain. The point of decision would be tricky. Flesh, Stile thought. Synonyms would be body, meat, fatten. There would be others, but these sufficed. If he explored every single avenue, he would not complete any one chain in time. Selectivity, there was the key to this challenge. Now try meat, as in the best prospect for homonyms. Meat, as in proper. Meat as in a competitive meat. Meat as in measure. Try the competition event for synonyms. Contest, race, competition. Then race, jumping to the homonym, meaning subspecies. And the synonym color, and on to hue. Was this leading to spirit? Not rapidly. Better try an alternative and return to this if necessary. His first job was to establish a viable chain. Any chain, within 5 minutes. That would be an automatic win if Tulip failed to find one. Of course, if they both came up with the same chain, the first to announce it would win. So if he found a good one, he should announce it regardless of time. But he was not worried about that. He had pretty good judgment on word chains. He glanced covertly at Tulip. She was chewing on her lip, making little gestures with her left hand, as though shaping a slippery substance. Was she making faster progress? He didn't think so, as she really wasn't that bright, but it was possible. Then she caught him looking, and made a suggestive motion with her hip. He had to turn his eyes away, lest she bring his thoughts right back to flesh and cost him the game. That was what she was trying to do. The flirt. Maybe that was how she had gotten this far. Try meat as in proper. Synonym fit. Homonym fit as in the contour of clothing. Yes. Then suit, and its homonym suit as in satisfy. Or the synonym please. Homonym please as in several requests. Synonym, was he returning to fit? As in a fit plea for favor? If so, this was a dead end, a waste of time, like a loop in the maze puzzle he had fallen into in another game with another woman. Too much time had passed. He couldn't afford that. This simple game became confusingly tricky under the pressure of competition. No loop here. Defined it as a wish, as desire, and desire as a homonym, meaning the urgency to possess, achieve, prevail. He certainly had that, which was a possible synonym for team spirit. Spirit! There it was, and jumped a homonym spirit as in soul, and his chain was complete. Unless that desire link was faulty. Please, desire, spirit. The computer might reject that as inexact. Better to work out a tighter chain. But 4 minutes were passed. Not enough time to figure out a new chain. Tulip looked as if she were on the verge of completing her own chain. Stile decided to go with this one. Chain, he announced. Damn, Tulip muttered. Present, the computer said. Stile presented it, trying to conceal his nervousness about the desire connection. But the computer did not challenge it. It was fairly liberal on the adaptations of language. Still, Tulip had another minute to produce a shorter chain, or a better one of the same length. Stile waited nervously. But she seemed to have given up. The time expired without her entry. Stile had won, more or less by default. It would have been different in naked physical, Tulip said tearfully. She had choked at the crisis point in this game, and now suffered the reaction. That's why I avoided it, Stile said, though he would have put it into some subcategory like foot racing and probably beaten her anyway. She really hadn't lost much. With her appearance, she could do well enough in the wider human galaxy, but it had the mild distaste of an unsatisfied victory. The separations between rounds were diminishing. Round 9 was due in the afternoon of the same day. Stile planned to spend the interim devising strategy and spells to finish the Red Adept, and to get some rest and refreshment. He was also concerned about Sheen. He had restored her in Phaze again, and she was now fully operational. But how could he abate the hurt of her non-living heartbreak? His attempted spell had not taken effect. She seemed to have lost much of her will to animation, and there seemed to be no way he could restore it. She needed the one thing he could not give, his complete love. Maybe, he thought again, he should have let her perish, instead of languishing like this. He had promised a clean death to the Red Adept. Could he do less for his friend? There was a knock on the apartment door. This was unusual. The victors usually announced themselves on the screen. Sheen, alert to threats, went to see to it. Oh, she exclaimed in a perfect representation of surprise. You survived. I must speak to Stile, the visitor said. Stile snapped alert. That was the Lady Blue's voice. He went to the door. There she stood, a little disheveled, but irredeemably splendid. Bluette, of course. She had escaped the robot and sought out the name and description Hulk had given her. Smart woman. Yet this was extremely awkward. Come in, Stile said. Of course I'll help you. I'm on the trail of the woman who killed Hulk now. But one thing you must know at the outset. I want nothing personal to do with you after this. Her brow furrowed prettily. Nothing? I am married to your alternate self, the Lady Blue of Phaze. You look exactly like her, Bluette. You are exactly like her. But she is the one I love. This is no reflection on your own merit that I sincerely appreciate. But I know you have no personal interest in me. But, well, if she thought I was seeing you... She smiled, oddly, at ease. I understand. Stile, Sheen said, evidently making some sort of connection. She is not. Not my woman, he agreed. Bluette, I never wanted to meet you. It's too confusing. And I know after all you went through, is that robot still on your trail? That we can take care of. Stile, listen, Sheen said. I just realized this is... Look, don't make this any more difficult than it is, Stile snapped. Every second she stands here, this woman is so like the one I love. The woman smiled again. Now thou dost know what I went through, Adept. The false so like the true. What? Something didn't jibe here. Thee. Stile froze. Oh, no. I am the Lady Blue, she said. Fain would I listen longer to thy protestations of other love, my lord, but I did cross the curtain to bring thee a vital message. Never had Stile imagined the Lady Blue in this frame. But that means that Bluette is dead, Sheen finished. It has, after all, been several days. We should have heard from her before this, had she escaped. Oh, God, Stile said. That I did not want to... And now the two of you have met. That was never supposed to happen. In the back of his mind, moving rapidly to the fore, was his concern that the robot might do some harm to her human rival. He had to get the Lady Blue out of here. Thou speakest as if there be some shame here, the Lady Blue said. I have long known of thy most loyal friend in this frame, the lovely Lady Sheen, and I am glad to meet her at last. She turned to address Sheen directly. I am oath-friend to Nasa. Can I be less to thee? If thou wouldst honour me with thy favour, O noblest of ladies. And Sheen was crying. It was not the sort of reaction a robot was supposed to have, but it was natural to her. Oh, lady. Oh, lady. Then they were hugging each other, both crying, while Stile stood in mute confusion. Somehow it seemed that Sheen had been restored, yet the mechanism of it was beyond his immediate comprehension. When the first flush of their emotion subsided, the Lady Blue delivered her message to Stile. A bat lad came to the demesne, sore tired from rapid flying. Methought he wanted healing, but it was news for thee he brought. Vodlevel's son, Stile exclaimed. I never thought he would. He said the Red Adept had returned to the ruin of her demesne and fashioned a terrible spell, a basilisk amulet that would destroy whatever it touched, being invoked by the very frame of Proton. This she meant to give thee in the frame of Proton, and when thou didst bring it across the curtain... Her final trap, Stile said. A basilisk whose very touch brings horrible death, whose gaze petrifies. But why does she think I would accept such an amulet from her? The bat lad said she made it resemble something thou couldst not refuse, something thou wouldst immediately take across the curtain. That was all he knew. He dared not get within the range of her power. He thought it was news thou shouldst have, and I thought so too. So I tried to reach thee, and succeeded. It is as if Bluette gave her life to make this message possible, Stile said. And the vampire child. My trifling favor to him may be destined to save my life. Yet this is strange. Why should I need to be warned against doing what I would not have done anyway? Well, I know the power of Red's amulets. In this frame, they are harmless, but I would never carry one across to Phaze. The Lady Blue spread her hands. Mayhap we can piece it out, my lord. I must return to the wolves in 3 hours, lest they worry. Meanwhile, may I view more of this wondrous frame of Proton? This may be mine only chance to visit it, and fain would I know as much as thy homeland as I can. I'll show you, Sheen said. I'll show you everything. Sheen was a machine, but she would not deceive Stile. If she accompanied the Lady Blue, she would protect her. And if that was what she wanted, how could he deny it? Thus it was that Stile found himself alone with his puzzling piece of information, while the two ladies toured the local domes. Who would have thought that the source of Sheen's woe would also be the abatement of it? Yet, from the moment the Lady Blue had addressed her as Lady Sheen, what healing magic there was in a title! The Lady Blue, without apparent premeditation or design, had granted equal status to Sheen and proffered friendship and respect. Sheen had been instantly conquered. The issue of her machine nature had not been a consideration. Stile returned to his deliberations. He decided that the Red Adept planned to gift him with the amulet through some third party, so that he would not suspect its nature. Perhaps a silver brooch for the Lady Blue. Of course he would take that to her in Phaze. But now he had been warned. He would not take anything across the curtain. In 2 hours, the two returned, forever friends. What a frame this is, the Lady Blue exclaimed, exactly like the tourist she was. Never since I saw the West Pole have I seen the like. Truly a magical world. The West Pole? You mean in Phaze there really is a... Thou didst not know? I will take thee there, my love, once this business here is done. I will go there, Stile said. Fascinating that an alien creature from some far galactic world had heard about the West Pole, while Stile, who seemed to live almost on top of it, had not. Now, I love thee, lady, and fain would I have thee stay. But until the message of the oracle has been appropriately interpreted, guaranteeing me the chance to stay with thee, I must remain apart from thee. I go, my lord. She approached Stile and kissed him. Then Sheen accompanied her to the curtain. Stile continued his research for the next round of the tourney, fearing his company would only endanger the Lady Blue here on Proton. She had acted with considerable courage, coming here and finding her way through the mysterious technological habitat of Proton. He loved her for that courage, but this was not her frame. Round 9 carried a 2-year tenure bonus for the loser, and the prospect of much more for the winner. Stile was now into safe territory. He could not be exiled from Proton after washing out of the tourney. This removed some of the tension. It was now more important to deal with the Red Adept than to win any particular game. Oh, to win the tourney would be grand, but the odds remained against him, especially with one loss on his tally. But once he eliminated Red, the entire frame of Phaze was awaiting him, and a happy life with the Lady Blue. So, he would play his best, but without the terrible urgency he had had before. That was just as well, since he had other things to do than research his prospective opponents. That research had become a chore. His opponent this time was a female citizen. 3 citizens in one tourney. His luck was bad. But no, probably half the survivors of this level were citizens, so this was no luck at all. Still, he did not intend to mess with her. He had the letters, so he couldn't stop her from picking her specialty, probably mental or art, but he might interfere with her plan. He chose machine. It came up 4C, machine-assisted art. Not his favorite, but probably not hers either. They could find themselves doing aesthetic figures while parachuting from a simulated airplane tower, or playing a concert on a theremin, or doing sculpture by means of selective detonations of incendiary plastic. He would probably feel more at home in these pursuits than she. But when they gritted through, she outmaneuvered him. They had to compete on the sewing machine, making intricate patterns and pictures on a cloth background. She, as a citizen, had a lot more exposure to cloth than he. Indeed, she wore an elaborate dress suit with borders stitched in gold and silver thread. But she had always had serfs to do her dressmaking for her. So, unless she had practiced in this particular art, Stile, of course, had practiced. He had spent years advancing his skills in every facet of the game. He knew how to use a sewing machine. He was not expert, but he was adequate. As it turned out, he was moderately better than the citizen. It was an unspectacular game, but the victory was his. Now for the finish against Red. Sheen's friends, who as machines had great difficulty perceiving the semi-subjective curtain, had come up with a device to detect it. Sheen now carried this device. She would know, in much the way Nasa knew the whereabouts of Red, where the curtain was. That way, Red would not again elude him by stepping across a fold of the curtain he did not know was near. Stile prepared carefully. Sheen carried an assortment of small weapons and devices: a laser, a radiation grenade, a periscope, stun gas capsules, and a folding steel broadsword. Her friends had provided a gyro-stabilized unicycle seating two, so she could ferry him rapidly about, anywhere where crowds would not find it too attention-fixing. A great deal went on in Proton that failed to attract the notice of citizens, but there were limits. In fact, part of this deadly game would be the effort to force Red to call attention to herself, while Stile escaped it. His only crime was the sabotage of Red's dome. That had probably annoyed her citizen mother, but might be attributed to a repair machine malfunction. Red would have known the truth, but not wanted to report it and have her own situation investigated. She, on the other hand, had been responsible for the deaths of Hulk and Bluette. Oh, a double pain and guilt there. And these were recorded on holotape. She would be banished instantly, even if she won more tenure through the tourney, once those murders came to light. Unless she won the tourney and became a citizen, then she would be immune to all reprisal. Stile had to make sure she did not succeed in that. They set out in quest of the enemy. Stile had a full day before round 10, and if that were not time enough, he would resume the chase after the round. His oath of vengeance would soon be satisfied, one way or the other. First, he went to the curtain at a remote spot and stepped across. Nasa was there, with the Lady Blue. Startled, Stile protested. "Lady, I wanted thee to be under the protection of the werewolves." "A wolf went to the oracle," she said, "and learned that his oath friend Nasa was in dire peril from this mission. Since Nasa will not give over, the wolves and unicorns are now patrolling the curtain, ready to aid her if need be. Rather than interfere with this effort, I too patrol the curtain." Stile was not wholly satisfied with this, but realized that this was another device of the animals to help him. They wanted to be in on the action. "I expect to deal with Red and Proton," he said. "My magic is stronger than hers, in Phaze, so she is unlikely to cross the curtain before settling with me. Do you all take care of yourselves." "Indeed," the lady agreed, "and thee of thyself, my love." How glad he would be when this was over, and he could love her without restraint. But that had to wait, lest he void his oracular guarantee. Nasa pointed the direction of red. Then Stile returned across the curtain to Sheen, drove a distance parallel to the curtain, recrossed, and got a new bearing. Now he was able to triangulate. It seemed red was near the spot she had halted before, when he intercepted her and leaped over her car. She must have a secret place there. They drove there at moderate speed so that Nasa could pace them easily. If Red tried to step across the curtain again, she would be in immediate trouble. Of course, her amulets could destroy Nasa and the Lady Blue, so Stile still didn't want them participating in the conclusion, but they could certainly watch from a safe distance. At least they would know the outcome as soon as it happened. And perhaps the lady's presence presented a guarantee for Nasa, since the lady could not bear him any son if she died at this stage. The lady should survive, and would hardly allow Nasa to perish in her stead. The direction was east. They avoided individual domes and slowed as they neared the spot. It would have been fun, touring the desert like this, comparing the landscape to that of Phaze, if the mission weren't so serious. There were crevices and mounds and the depressions where lakes might once have been, where they could be again, if the citizens ever developed the interest to restore the planet instead of depleting it. But that was a hopeless notion. Citizens cared nothing for the external environment. In fact, the very hostility of it gave them additional control over the system, for no serf could flee outside. There was nothing where Red was supposed to be. Sand and low sand dunes covered the entire area. They sought the nearest fold of the curtain. Stile crossed. Mare and Lady were there. Stile obtained 2 more pointings, narrowing down the location precisely. Red was not in Phaze, but in the equivalent spot in Proton was a bunker, a room set below the level of the ground. It was filled with amulets, obviously a cache of Red's. But these amulets would not work in Proton. The curtain passed through this spot, but it was dark beyond it. Stile would have to cross it to find out what was there. Nasa blew a negative note. Red was in the dark beyond. She could surely see Stile, since he was here in the lighted frame. She could be holding a sword high in both hands, waiting to decapitate the next person who crossed. A simple enough trap. So, Stile avoided it. He removed himself some distance, crossed a Proton, and explained the situation to Sheen. "It is surely a trap," she agreed. "She means you to come to her. Don't chance it." "I'm not going to let her escape. She'll never come out if I just leave her alone." Sheen opened her chest compartment and brought out the laser cutter. "Make a hole, drop in a stun capsule." That seemed appropriate. Stile started the laser. Quickly the hole formed. Soon it broke through the steel ceiling of the bunker. Then he dropped in the capsule. There was a hiss as it activated, and a puff of the gas emerged from the hole. "I heard something in there fall," Sheen said. "Now for the periscope." She brought out the tiny device. It was electronic and needed no solid extension into the hole. Its perceptor unit was mounted on an almost invisible thread that dangled down. It showed the Red Adept sprawled naked on the floor of her miniature fortress, an old-fashioned dueling pistol in one hand, an amulet in the other. Had she planned to force the amulet on him at gunpoint? If so, she had been amazingly naive. "I am suspicious," Sheen said. "There is no entrance here in Proton. She uses Phaze as access. She expected you to enter that way. There could be an automatic weapon set to cover the curtain." "Yes, we had better force entry from here." They set about it. Sheen had several construction bombs and used them to blast away the sand and rip open a man-sized aperture in the wall of the bunker. Then she entered first. "No automatic weapon," she reported. "Still, I think you'd better stay clear." The hell with that, Stile said, walking down the sand embankment. I can't have the ladies doing everything for me. But we can't be sure this was the extent of the trap. It's too simple. Even I could have worked out something more sophisticated, and I have no creative imagination. At least let me search the premises. You do that. I'll tie up Red. Because Stile found he could not kill her this way. Now, when she was unconscious. Funny how she had allowed herself to be gassed when she must have heard the laser drill. He leaned over the body, not squatting because of his knees. Sheen commenced her inspection of the bunker. Something nagged him, but he couldn't place it at the moment. I won't touch that amulet, certainly. Abruptly, Red moved. Her head turned to cover him, and her pistol whipped up. She was not unconscious at all. Stile hurled himself to the side as the gun went off. Had he been squatting, as a normal man would have done, he would have been fatally caught. The gun was aimed for the heart of a squatting man. As it was, the bullet slammed into his left thigh. It was a bad hit. Now, Stile exerted his trance control. He let himself fall backward while clapping both hands to the wound. The pain was terrible, but he was bringing it under control, while he slowed the pulsing eruption of blood. He could not afford to lose consciousness. He could bleed to death rapidly. The major artery had been nicked or severed. He would need a surgeon's prompt attention. Meanwhile, she launched herself at Red. Pistol and amulet flew wide, and Red was hurled against the wall. But then Red righted herself and hurled Sheen away with inhuman strength. "This is a robot," Sheen cried. "A machine like me." "True," the red figure said. "I bear this message for Stile. Make haste away, midget, for at this moment the Red Adept is launching an explosive drone vehicle tuned to the bullet in you. How much damage the drone does depends on your location when it catches you." They heard the noise of machinery moving some distance away. Something was rising from another bunker. "Run, Blue," the robot continued. "Suffer the joys of the chase, rabbit." Message ends. And the robot went dead. "Sheen," Stile cried. "Carry me to the curtain. They can help me there, and the drone can't cross." "The amulet!" Sheen cried. "It is the bullet." "The bullet," Stile echoed. Now the full nature of this terrible trap was apparent. And he had almost fallen into it despite the warning the Lady Blue had brought. If he crossed with the bullet in him, it would animate into the basilisk, and he would be dead before he could utter a spell. But if he did not cross... Now they heard the released drone, cruising across the sand toward them. There could be enough explosive in that to blow up a mountain. Sheen stooped to pick him up. She carried him to their unicycle and set him in the seat and flung the safety harness around him while Stile clung to consciousness and to his leaking thigh. Then she jumped in herself and started the motor. The drone car was rounding the bunker, picking up speed. Sheen accelerated away at right angles to its path. In moments, they were traveling 70 kilometers an hour, leaving the drone behind. This was not a particularly fast velocity for travel on a surface road, but across the desert landscape, it seemed horrendous. "We'll have to get the bullet out before we take you to a doctor." "How can we get it out without a doctor? Especially if we can't stop," Stile gritted. He was not in the most reasonable of moods at the moment, as he fought to keep blood and body consciousness together. The rough riding did not help. "I'll summon one of my friends to intercept us." "Someone want to blow up the drone." They won't do that. It would attract attention to their nature. But one will help you and depart. Then the drone won't matter. Not to rush you, Stile said, but I can only hold on here a short while. I'm in partial trance, suppressing the circulation to my leg. But the wound is bad and I'm slowly losing control. My last reserves are depleting. I know the experience, she said. We'll stay right beside the curtain, so you can cross the moment we get the bullet out. Then you'll be able to use magic to... I can't heal myself with magic. The Lady Blue will find some other adept to help you, I'm sure. Perhaps the Lady Yellow. Yellow is no lady. She is an old crone. But he was being querulous in his adversity. Yellow probably could help. He remembered how the Lady Blue had won her favor by starting the applause at the Adept Pavilion. The Lady Blue was good at that sort of thing. Sheen guided the unicycle to the curtain. Stile perceived it now with remarkable clarity. Had it intensified? Or was his current state of pain-blocking trance responsible? It hardly mattered. He could see across as though it were an open window. The unicycle was handily outdistancing the drone at the moment, but in Phaze, Nasa was having trouble keeping up. The terrain was more varied there, with trees and streams and bushes obstructing her route. Slow it, Sheen. Nasa is wearing herself out, and I'll need her there the moment I cross. Sheen slowed, but then the drone gained, cutting into their lead. This was worrisome. That lead was their margin of safety. In addition, the landscape was getting rougher. They were heading generally west, curving north with the curtain, back toward the major cluster of domes. On the prior trips, they had maneuvered comfortably around the obstructions of boulder, dune, crevasse, and ridges. But the curtain crossed these heedlessly, and this made the drive difficult. Sheen had to skid along awkward slopes, bounce through gullies, and plow through mounds of sand. The drone suffered also, but it was squat and sturdy with broad wheel treads, and it kept on going. The hazards of this chase would shake apart the unicycle before they stopped the three-wheeled pursuer. Nasa, meanwhile, was encountering problems in Phaze. Stile watched her helplessly as Sheen guided the unicycle along the curtain, now one side of it, now the other, causing his view to shift about considerably. The unicorn could handle the irregularities of the terrain, but there were also creatures in the way. She had to charge through a colony of demons, and in a moment they were in pursuit like so many drones, eager for unicorn flesh. Nasa could have escaped them easily if she had not been staying close to the curtain, and if she had not had to worry about the security of the Lady Blue. Or she could have turned to fight them, putting them to flight with a few well-placed skewers, had she not had to keep up with Stile's vehicle. Now the demons were popping up everywhere from crevices in the rock, cutting her off. They were grinning. They knew they had her. Nasa blew a desperate summons on her horn. Stile could hear the sound, faintly, across the curtain, even as he rode in the same channel Nasa ran in, overlapping her without any tangible evidence of it. He could only actually see her when the curtain was between them so that he could look through it, and that happened only in snatches. The curtain was a funny thing, something he would have to explore more thoroughly someday and come to understand. Like the Oracle, it was a phenomenon that seemed to have no origin and no reasonable explanation. It merely existed, and was vital to communication between frames. Again, Nasa sounded. The call resounded across the wilderness. The demons growled in laughter. Sound could not hurt them. Stile wished he could cross over and help out with a spell, but that notion was folly. Then a ranging werewolf, summoned by the horn, spied them. He bayed. His oath friend was being molested. This was why they were patrolling the curtain. They had been warned of this danger. Their numbers were thinly spread because the convoluting curtain traversed a tremendous amount of territory, but their keen perceptions made up the difference. The bays of other wolves responded. Suddenly, they were converging, their sounds approaching at a gratifying rate. In moments, they were in sight, and leaping with savage glee and righteous anger at the demons. One thing a werewolf lived for: a good fight in a good cause. Now the predatory laughter of the demons turned to rage at this interference. But soon it turned to fear as more and more members of the wolf pack closed upon them, lips peeling back in the terrifying grin of attack as they cut in between demons and unicorn. Nasa ran on with a single note of gratitude, still carrying the Lady Blue, still pacing Stile. The sounds of the battle grew loud, then faded behind. The demons had chosen the wrong creature to attack, this time. Sheen continued to guide the unicycle. She handled it with desperate skill. Now a dome lay across the curtain. They had to skirt it, but when they intercepted the curtain again, Nasa was there, thin jets of fire issuing from her nostrils. She was overheating, but would not allow herself to fall behind. The Lady Blue clung to her, riding with consummate skill, watching out for other hazards, guiding Nasa into the best channels with little advisory nudges, not directives. The unicorn had charge of the run, but the lady was able to devote more attention to the route. Nasa was concentrating increasingly on the single effort of maintaining the pace. She no longer lifted her head to survey the course. She trusted the lady's guidance. Stile knew exactly how it was. He had raced the marathon in times past, and had reached the stage where nothing existed except his agonizing, pumping legs and the called course corrections of friends. Vision itself became expendable. Stile was struggling similarly now. His hands were soaking in blood. His consciousness was slowly slipping. He was panting with the sheer effort of keeping flesh and spirit together. Flesh and spirit. Had that been a premonition, that tourney game? He had succeeded then, but this struggle was harder, with more depending on it. Still, the drone pursued. He saw snatches of scenes across the curtain. Hills, then a river. Nasa had to ford it, her hot hooves sending up gouts of steam as they touched the surface. Then it grew deeper and she swam, falling behind. She could not shift to Firefly and wing across it, because of the Lady Blue. The unicycle was traversing the dry bed of that river. Then the curtain curved down toward the south again, past the caves of the vampire bats, back across another arm of the river at the ruins of the Red Domain. Other unicorns were running with Nasa now, clearing the way. Bats were flying, spotting problems, getting them alleviated. A dragon was taking a snooze across the curtain. Faced by 6 charging unicorns, it hastily vacated the spot. Little folk of the daylight kind stood aside to let the strange procession pass. The grueling run went on. All for him. Stile realized with pained gratitude. All the unicorns, werewolves, and vampires extending themselves to their limits just to help him preserve his life. Nasa running herself to destruction. Could it be worth it? Now her hooves were glowing red. Her very flesh was burning up. She left a narrow trail of smoke where her passage had ignited the leaves of the forest floor. Then a new vehicle closed with the unicycle. It locked on, matching the pace exactly. Machine arms reached out. Sensors traveled down Stile's body, touching his gory leg. Anesthetic came. Germicidal radiation flared. There, at the bouncing velocity of the chase, the robot surgeon removed the bullet, patched the torn artery, stitched and bound the wound, while simultaneously injecting Stile with artificial blood matching his type. It retouched the nerve block on that leg so that no pain returned. Then the arms and tentacles retreated. The other vehicle disengaged and went its own way with a parting warning. Protect our interests. Tell no one in Proton how he had been helped. When Sheen's friends chose to render assistance, they did so with enormous precision and effect. Stile knew he could not go to any hospital now. He had sworn not to betray the self-willed machines, so he had to conceal the nature of this surgery from the citizens. But that was easy enough to do. He no longer needed surgery. Still, he was near to unconsciousness. His human reserves had been depleted, and neither surgery nor artificial blood could take the place of rest. Sheen steered the unicycle to the curtain. Nasa made a final desperate effort, caught up, and galloped directly along it. The unicycle slowed to accommodate her. The drone closed in rapidly. Now unicorn and unicycle were superimposed, separated only by the frames. "Do it!" Sheen cried. Stile willed himself through. He fell across Nasa's hot back. The Lady Blue flung her arms about him, clasping him, her healing hands already helping. He was safe at last. Across the curtain, Sheen's vehicle accelerated. She had the bullet now. The drone followed her. Stile, relieved, lost consciousness. Another very long chapter. Hello, Joy in General. Good to see you. Yeah, poor Bluette. I mean, pulled into this just ugliness through no mechanism of her own, and then killed because of it in like a 24-hour span. Living a normal life, killed by robots. And yeah, well, so the Oracle is weird with this because basically the Oracle sicked the Red Adept on the Blue Adept, or the Blue Adept on the Red Adept, or whichever way you want to take it. But then, like, Stile is using the oracular message to keep himself alive by not procreating with his wife. So, I mean, I give nothing away as we go through this. I have read the entire, I want to say, 9 books in this series. So I know what's coming. I know the story behind everything. I give nothing away on any of this. Just the Oracle, is definitely playing with Stile's life right now. But hey, use what you got to use, right? All right, guys. We have one chapter left to read. And then that will wrap Blue Adept. Of course, as always, if you have not, remember to subscribe at youtube.com/@SirArminius. So you know the story as well. It is fun reading some of these books sometimes when you actually know the stuff behind things, because you can see how things are set up and you can see how other things are going that you would not on your first read through. And it's really neat the way that some of these authors do a fantastic job of building things in that in ways that you would not know what was going on until you knew about it. And then you can go back and look and be like, another one that was fantastic at that, for those of you guys who haven't done it, it was Robert Jordan. God rest his soul. With the Wheel of Time. Just a fantastic series. Really, really long series, but a fantastic series of books. And I find this in a lot of these series like this, is you catch little things that that you didn't know, but the author knew it when they were writing it. So it's fun. But like I said, both of these chapters will be up at the end of the night tonight once the stream is over. And then either Saturday or next Tuesday, we will start. Oh, wow. It's only like 15 books. Um, it didn't need to be as long as it was, but it was fantastically written. Robert Jordan actually, if I recall correctly, had a stroke while he was writing them. And so some of the middle books, while still good, they meander a little bit. But overall, a fantastic series. For somebody who enjoys audiobooks, read by Michael Kramer and Kate Redding, and those two are awesome. I mean, I wouldn't ever even try to match what they have done with that stuff in there. They are fantastic audiobook narrators. One of the reasons I will never probably read out loud those books, because they're so well done. But definitely worth a read or a listen for anybody who is interested in them. Highly worthwhile. So Robert Jordan actually passed away before he finished writing the series. But he had his notes written out to the end. He had the outlines of everything, and he actually had scenes and parts of it written. And it was taken over by Brandon Sanderson, another fantastic author. If you haven't read any of his stuff, again, highly recommend it. Who came in and I want to say finished the last 3 or 4 books. I forget exactly how many, but he had it because Robert Jordan passed away before it finished, and Robert Jordan's wife wanted it to be able to be finished. She found the right person to finish it up, and he was able to. He had to put a little bit of his spin on it to fill in places that Robert Jordan hadn't written, but he was able to use passages that were written by Robert Jordan, as well as all of his copious notes and outlines to finish out the series. So he knew what was going on as he did it. So again, fantastic. Yeah, I'm happy to provide that. I started reading those when I want to say he was on like book 6, and it ended up being, I want to say 15 books. And each time a new one would come out, I would start at the beginning. I'd read the entire series up to there again, read the new book. New book came out, start at the beginning, read the series, read the new book. Hey, Jeff. Oh, yeah. By all means. So like I said, because of his stroke, it meandered a little bit in the middle, but overall, fantastically done. Like I said, it could have been shortened a little bit from what it was, but Brandon Sanderson taking it over to do the last couple of books did not hurt the writing of it at all. Brandon Sanderson is a fantastic author. And really was the right choice to pick up and continue that. And yeah, they are a series I still pick up every now and again and just listen on through or read on through, because they are really good. Anyways, as I've gotten us off onto a wild tangent. Hey, what are you doing back there? You're a good girl. Nope. You can say hi. Just say hi. Hello. The recliner in the back for the dog. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and jump into chapter 12. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we approach the end of Blue Adept. Yes, I got the 2 puppies. I have a beagle, and I have the other one that you saw back there. Ginger. Come here. Come on. No, come on. Hey, come here. There's the other one. You can see her just a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and jump in to the end of the book. Enjoy, everyone. Chapter 12. Dance. Round 10 was getting into rarefied territory. Only 20 players remained, 18 of whom had suffered one loss. The losers of this round would receive a 5-year tenure bonus. Stile had another liability to go with his bad knee, the healing thigh. The bullet amulet had lodged in his bone, holding the artery in passing. The damage, while bad, had not been as bad as it could have been, but he had depleted his vital resources and suffered near shock. The Yellow Adept had provided a potion that multiplied his healing rate tenfold. Still, nature needed time to do the job, and he had been able to rest only 10 hours before having to return for the next game. He was not in ideal shape. Sheen had led the drone back to Red's bunker and tossed the bullet in. That had been that. She reported, objectively, that it had been a most impressive explosion that tore open a second hidden chamber where the Red Adept had hidden. Unfortunately, Red had not been there at the time. She had vanished from the scene during the drone chase, and Stile had not thought to get another fix on her during his brief recovery period. As a result of all this assistance and attention by the several ladies of the frames, Stile was free of immediate threats to his welfare and was able to play the game. But he really intended to stay out of the physical column. Sheen was taking good care of him, but she could not help him there. His opponent this time was a man of his own ladder, nicknamed Track, age 35, the running champion of the over 30 category, and no slouch at other track events. Stile could not have beaten him at running, jumping, or swimming, even when in shape, and in his present condition, it would have been hopeless. But Track was comparatively weak in mental and had virtually no artistic awareness, so this should be an easy win for Stile, if he kept it out of physical and chance. As luck would have it, Stile got the letters. He could not eliminate the physical column. He considered rapidly. Naked was absolutely out. Tool was not good. Track was excellent at bicycle racing, tennis, billiards, and other such sports. Machine was a little better. Track was less secure in things like motorcycle racing, while Stile was expert, and his thigh would interfere only minimally. Animal, Stile was, of course, the champion horse racer. He could no longer flex his knees properly for best effect, but his basic skill and experience and rapport with horses remained. This was his obvious choice. Therefore, he did not take it. He went for Tool instead, hoping to catch Track sneaking in mental. 2D would have put them into animal training, and Track had an excellent touch with the circus whip. It didn't work. It came up 1B, Tool-assisted physical games. But Stile outmaneuvered him in the subgrid. The game came up Bubbles. This was about as delicate as a physical game could get. They blew soap bubbles with straws and wafted them across a measured alley. Scoring was by volume, distance, and time, to get the greatest volume of bubble across a set distance within the time limit. Stile had the fine touch here. His bubbles were only of medium size, but were durable, while Track's larger ones tended to pop before completing the distance. Stile won the game. It had been his gritting skill, once more, that had done it. They shook hands and parted, and the crowd of spectators applauded. This had hardly been a bruising or dramatic game, but the stakes were high enough to make it interesting to all. With 5 more years of tenure to look forward to, Track was not hurting badly. Stile managed 6 more hours accelerated healing in Phaze before reporting for round 11. Now the number of contestants was down to 11, with only 1 remaining undefeated. The losers of this round would receive a prize of 10 years' tenure. 1,013 had now been eliminated from the tourney. Stile's opponent was another citizen, this time a young one, about 15 years old. Stile was pretty sure he could prevail on most games of skill, but still did not want to risk the physical ones. This time he had the numbers, so put it into mental. There he would have no disadvantage. The citizen, surprisingly, selected animal. So it was 2D, the one Stile had played to avoid last time. When they gridded it down to the specific, they settled on mixed species communication. Each player had 3 untrained animals, a dog, a cat, and a rat. Each player had all-purpose animal snack treats and an electronic goad, positive and negative inducements. The task was to get all 3 animals to traverse a set maze without touching any of them. The first player to succeed would be the winner. The animals, of course, were at first more interested in pursuing or escaping each other than in doing intellectual tricks. Careful management was required. The goad was adjustable, creating pain in the systems of whatever animal it was tuned to, ranging from mild to paralyzing. The cats learned very quickly not to attempt to pounce on the rats, because of the mysterious agony that balked them. But the inducement of a positive act was more difficult than the suppression of a negative one. The snacks could not be used to lead the animals. They could only be presented as rewards for proper behavior. This was confusing to the creatures. There was a series of locks in which, by the design of the layout, 2 animals were necessarily together briefly before passing into the next stage of the maze. That was what really put it into the mental column. The reward of food could lure the animals into the first lock, and the goad could prevent them from attacking one another, since they tended to repeat what had been positive before and avoid what had been negative. But the overall strategy of placement and movement and incentive was what counted in causing the animals to respond most positively. Again, Stile's experience and rapport with animals paid off. He completed the course while the young citizen was still trying to get his cat to join his growling dog in the lock instead of pouncing on the rat. Had he brought the rat to the lock first, he would have been more successful. Either of the other animals would have joined it willingly. Stile had brought rat, cat, and dog through in that order, and by the time they finished, all 3 were eager to continue moving forward. The round was Stile's. Funny how these important later games seem to be getting less consequential in actual play. Stile's first round game, football, had been his toughest. This last one, his easiest. But the luck of the grid often produced such anomalies. Again, he returned to Phaze for a night's healing and rest. It was a yellow adept who tended him, in her natural old woman form. She had the potions and experience to handle it, and she represented no temptation for him to abridge his oracular guarantee, as might have been the case with the Lady Blue. Why was Yellow doing this? He was in hock to her again, and was getting to like her quite well as a person. It was as if his need brought out her better traits. Maybe she liked being part of a team, doing something worthwhile, earning the appreciation of others. It was something few adepts experienced. The child, brown adept also paid him a visit to wish him well. It seemed she felt a certain retroactive guilt for the use of a golem in the prior murder of Blue, and wanted to make an amend. Things were looking up. But until he eliminated the red adept, nothing was settled. She must have been busy setting up new traps during the period of his convalescence. Then Sheen reported that Red had shown up in the tourney. She, too, had made it to the rarefied rounds, with a single loss. If both Red and Stile continued winning, they would eventually come up against each other. It happened in round 12. This was hardly coincidence at this point. Only 6 contestants remained. one of them undefeated. The bonus to the loser this time was 20 years tenure, a full extra term. Stile's thigh was now almost healed, and he had the incentive of his oath of vengeance. He was ready for Red. This was one situation she could neither escape nor cheat. By beating her here, he would not only deny her citizenship, he would wash her out of the tourney. And since her murders of Hulk and Bluette had now come to citizen attention, thanks to the investigation of Bluette's employer, she would be denied the bonus tenure. She would be exiled. Stile pondered the meaning of this. He had wanted to kill her, yet his oath was merely to make an end of her. The Oracle had not predicted killing either. It had said Blue would destroy Red. Did exile constitute destruction? Perhaps. The citizens had fairly sophisticated mechanisms to ensure that no exiled person ever returned to Proton. Don't worry about that aspect. At any rate, the more Stile contemplated the prospect of coldly killing another human being, the less he liked it. He simply was not a murderer. So if this was the meaning of oath and oracle, he would accept it with a certain relief. Red's position was different. She needed to kill Stile. Because if he washed out of the tourney at this point, he would have 20 years as a 10-year serf to plot her destruction, assuming she made it through to citizenship. He would have his power base on Phaze, where he would be safe from her mischief, and could locate her and make forays at any time. The powers of citizenship were great, but eventually he would get her, and they both knew it. So she needed more than victory in the tourney. There were ways to kill in the games. The competitions were designed to be as safe as possible, but a person could have heart failure during extraordinary physical exertion, or an anesthetic dart in pistol dueling could be accidentally contaminated with a legal but lethal drug, or equipment could fail at a critical moment. She would surely try to arrange something like that, though it was prohibitively difficult under the experienced eye of the game computer. Stile, in turn, would try to prevent any such accident. There was little delay at this stage, since the game facilities now had to support only 3 games. The audience for each would be huge. Stile was spared the unpleasantness of having to converse with his enemy. They proceeded immediately to the grid. Again, he got the letters. Every time he really wanted the numbers, it seemed. The luck of the draw denied them. Stile did not try to play for Red's weakness. He was not sure what they were, in game terms. He played for his own strength. Tool. He liked animals and worked well with them, but he wanted no more android animal football games or dog, cat, rat games. It came up 4A. She had gone for art. 4A? He had selected B. But his entry was clear. He had miskeyed. Of all the times to do that, this carelessness could cost him the match. No time for recrimination. The naked arts related to singing, dancing, pantomime, storytelling, poetry, humor, and the like. Presentations before an audience. Stile was good enough at these things. Presumably, Red was too. She had probably been gridding for sculpture in 4B. Had Stile played correctly, that might have come to pass. With her life's work in fashioning amulets, she was thoroughly experienced and skilled at that sort of thing. Of course, he would not have let her have it. He would have thrown it into music. Against Clef, he had been in trouble. Against Red, he was pretty sure he would have a decisive advantage in music. But of course, she would not let him have it either, so they would have gridded into something else that perhaps neither of them had much experience in, such as writing. So he might just as well on here. He was versed in most of the naked arts, and an expert in some. If she wanted to match him in the generation of original free verse... But the grid turned up dance. All right, he could dance too. Did she have a particular specialty, like the classical minuet? He did not care to risk that. Better to throw it into a more creative form, where his imagination could score. Not ballet, because his thigh injury could interfere, but perhaps something loosely related. In the end, it came to a structured, free-form dramatic dance. Paradoxical as that seemed. It had a script with set maneuvers, rather like a ballet, but within that frame, the particular interpretations were left to the players. It was costumed. In this case, it was considered that apparel was useful for effect without being a necessary tool. Naked did not refer to the absence of clothing, since all serfs lacked that. It simply meant that a particular game could be played without any device like a bat or computer or hunting dog. So for this nakedness, the participants were clothed, for the benefit of the audience. Stile, recently acclimatized to the conventions of Phaze, was able to take this in stride. Red, of course, had no difficulty at all. All in all, he felt reasonably well off. The computer established the script. It had a good file of diverse storylines, and varied them enough so that there were few repeats in a given year. This did not mean that some play themes were fairly unusual, but that was all part of the challenge. This one was based on a tale of the Arabian Nights, the Ifrit's Beauty Contest. Citizens tended to favor Arabian motifs, associating with the presumed opulence of 9th and 12th century Arabian culture. Stile had the role of Kamar al-Zaman, a bachelor prince, and read the part of Princess Budur, Moon of Moons. Stile was not familiar with this particular story, but had a foreboding about it. These Arabian tales could get pretty fundamental. This one was obviously a romance, and the last thing he could stomach was a game of love with the enemy he had sworn to destroy. But there was no clean way out now. The computer was the narrator and stage director. A panel of performing arts critics was the judge. They would take into consideration the responses of the audience, but would not be bound by it. It was known that audiences often had illiterate tastes and colossal ignorances. Stile was satisfied with this. It meant his performance would be judged on its aesthetic merits, rather than on his size or Red's appearance. Maybe, too, he was foolishly buoyed by his last experience with such a panel, in connection with the harmonica duet. He knew something like that was unlikely to happen again. Still, they took their places on the darkened stage. The light came on in Stile's part of the set. It was not a fancy Arabian setting, to his surprise, but a simple 2-level pseudo-stone alcove. Kamar al-Zaman, an Arabian prince, has been confined to his chambers by his father, the king, because Kamar refuses to marry any of the eligible girls of the kingdom, or any of the princesses of friendly neighboring kingdoms. The king wishes to ensure the continuance of the royal line, and harbors a nagging suspicion that his son may be gay. So has taken stringent measures to force the issue and to conceal the situation from the public. Prince Kamar submits to this humiliation with genteel grace. He now does the dance of the unbowed head, symbolizing his determination to pursue his own life without regard for the dictates of royal fashion. Suddenly, Stile liked this tale better. He could dance this theme. He believed in individual freedom and initiative, especially since he had discovered what life was like in Phaze. Even when an infallible oracle set a particular fate, man's ingenuity could shape it into something profitable. Stile was a prince, in the terms of Phaze, and a peasant, in the terms of Proton. His participation in the tourney, he realized now, was motivated by his desire to change his status, to become a prince. Stile danced. His archaic costume was designed for dancing rather than for any historical accuracy. He wore white tights that left his legs completely free, and a flowing blue cape that flung out when he whirled. It was fun. He developed his presentation as he did it, showing his defiance of the system, his fierce will to succeed. It was Stile against the frame of Proton, Stile against adversity. He spun and leaped and spread his arms in the universal gestures of defiance, and finally wound down to passivity. For he was, after all, Kamar, imprisoned in the tower like a common serf for daring to choose his own mode of living and loving. No one could appreciate his defiance here in the dark tower, and this made it empty, except for the audience. It was large, and it applauded vigorously when Stile finished. Maybe this was a rote response, clapping because that was what was supposed to be done. But Stile hoped that he had in fact conveyed a mood that all of them could understand. Serf against citizen. The experts on the panel made notes. It had been an excellent dance, thematically and technically, a good start on his role. Maybe this would work out. Now Stile's portion of the stage darkened. Red's illuminated. Hers was a very feminine set, with draperies and mirrors and a plush feather bed made up on the elevated rear section of the stage, and her costume fit right in. Meanwhile, the Princess Budur, Moon of Moons, renowned for her beauty and accomplishments in a kingdom on the far side of the civilized world, has experienced similar difficulties. She has refused all suitors, finding none she likes, because she prefers to marry for love rather than prestige or convenience. Her father is furious and has confined her to quarters until she becomes more amenable to reason. Now, alone, she performs the dance of blighted hope, symbolizing her unrequited longing for true romance. Red danced. She wore a lovely red outfit with a full circle skirt and gems that gleamed in the lights, huge rubies making her motion sparkle. She was, Stile realized reluctantly, a beautiful woman, well-formed and healthy. Alone, her size was not apparent. She looked normal, as did Stile. Her life of malice had left her physically untouched. She was an excellent dancer, too. Her symbolism came through exquisitely. She spun precisely so that her skirt flared out and lifted to show perfectly proportioned legs. She made eloquent gestures of love-longing that could not be misinterpreted. Her face became radiant with hope and pitiful with disappointment. Was she a consummate actress, or did she really feel these emotions? Stile felt uncomfortable doubt. It was awkward to maintain his hate at full intensity in the face of this exquisite presentation. At last, she collapsed in complete abandoned grief, ending the dance. Never had hope appeared more blighted, or a fate less deserved. The audience burst into applause again. Stile realized with misgiving that Red had outdanced him. She had conveyed more emotion in a more effective manner than he had. He was going to have to work for this round. To further enhance his discomfort, he realized now that if Red made it to citizenship, she would have much greater resources than she had had before, and she would not need to remain on the defensive. She could probably hire execution squads to dispatch him at her convenience. She did not have to kill him here. It was sufficient merely to defeat him. His situation was looking worse as hers looked better. Both Kamar and Budur strip and sleep, for it is night. The narrator continued. Individual spotlights touched each person with gray light to suggest night, leaving the rest of the stage dark. Stile removed his costume and folded each piece carefully, as a prince would, then stretched out on the elevated back section of the stage, feigning sleep. There was surely more to this dance than this. There had to be, for he was behind and needed to catch up. Now, the tower in which Prince Kamar is confined happens to be haunted by a female Afrit, a supernatural being of the tribes of the Jinn. The computer narrator continued. Stile smiled inwardly. How little the computer knew that in Phaze, the alternate aspect of this planet, there really were tribes of Jinn. This story could be literal there. In fact, it could be literal here, since Phaze overlapped Proton. Maybe the Afrits were playing this out in this same spot at this moment. If they had any way to perceive what was happening here without the use of the curtain. This Afrita has been away for the day, going about her business of stirring up assorted mischief in human affairs, but at night she returns. She passes through the stone wall and enters the tower chamber. As she is invisible and immaterial to whatever extent she chooses to be. Lo, she discovers the sleeping Prince Kamar on her bed, and is amazed by the handsomeness of this mortal creature. She admires him for some time, deeply regretting that he is not her kind. Then she flies out to tell her friends of this wonder. She encounters a male Afrit, who informs her that he has found a mortal who is prettier than hers. Affronted, she challenges him to a beauty contest. They will place the two mortals beside each other and compare them directly. There was a pause while the lights dimmed. Stile had to get up and cross the stage and lie down beside Red on her feather bed. The Afrits had carried him there, the sleeping prince. His foreboding increased again. He did not like this close a contact with her, but he had to follow the script. Any minor deviation would penalize him, and a major deviation could disqualify him. He remained beside Red in play sleep, wishing he could simply shove her off the planet. His healing bullet wound began to bother him. Psychological, but indicative. The two Afrits study the unconscious mortals, the narrator said. Each person is a virtually perfect specimen, and the Afrits are unable to determine a winner. Finally, they hit upon a scheme. Let the mortals themselves decide which one is the prettiest. The Afrits will wake each in turn and watch their reactions. The one who is least affected will win, since that means the other must be less beautiful. Like the harmonica contest, Stile thought. The one who changed least won. He was becoming curious to know the outcome of this tale. The light brightened so that the audience could see the scene clearly. Prince and princess, sleeping naked beside each other. This would have no significance in ordinary Proton life, but after the elaborate costumes of the play, the suggestion of intimacy was strong. There was a moment of surprised silence. Then someone snickered. The mirth quickly spread across the hall. Stile knew what it was. He'd experienced this sort of thing all his life. The disparity in the size of the actors had become apparent, now that they were together. The computer did not care, and the panel of experts could handle it. But the audience was less sophisticated, which was why the audience had no vote in the determination of a winner here. "The pygmy and the Amazon," someone said, and the laughter swelled. Abruptly, a stasis field dropped over them all. No one could move, on stage or in the audience, though all could hear. Prolonged such a field could cause bodily harm and eventually death, but a short period it was merely uncomfortable, since bodily function slowed almost to a halt. "Single warning," the computer said emotionlessly. "Further interference from the audience or inappropriate reactions will result in expulsion of the audience." The stasis lifted. The audience was now completely sober. There would be laughter only if the script warranted it, and no extraneous remarks. The game computer was a strict taskmaster, even if you citizens had been caught in the stasis. They, however, made no protest. It was to their interest to have discipline maintained. Yet the damage had been done. The audience might be serious now, but the dance had become ludicrous. Stile knew that behind those sober faces a maniacal laughter raged. He fought to control his own embarrassment and anger. He drew on a device he had used long ago to reduce stage fright. He pictured each member of the audience as a gibbering demon, with huge pointed ears and a bare purple bottom, scratching at fleas, and whipping a barbed tail about to tickle his neighbors. He projected all the ludicrous feeling onto them, away from himself. I am a man, you are ape things. Stare, you foolish creatures, stew in your own drool. It was not entirely effective, but it helped. He was aware of Red shivering with suppressed resentment beside him. This was striking her, too. To this extent, he agreed with her. Yet there was nothing to do except continue. Pygmy and Amazon had a deadly serious game to win. The panel of judges had not laughed, and that was a critical element of this scene. The play had to go on. Now the Afrita changes into a bug and bites Kamar on the leg, the computer said. He wakes. Stile slapped his leg as if stung and sat up. This was a place where the audience might legitimately have chuckled, but there was not a single giver. And spies the Princess Budur, moon of moons, lying beside him. Kamar is amazed. He does not realize that he is in a far distant place, so intent is he on this marvel. He inspects her, touches her to make certain she is real and not a dream segment, and tries to wake her. But she is under a spell of sleep and cannot be roused. Stile went through the motions, in no way betraying his preference for throttling her. She was his enemy. Why couldn't she be the size of Nasa in girl form, so that he did not look ridiculous in her company? Insult added to injury. Yet at the same time he had to concede again, inwardly, that she was a remarkable figure of a woman, one that in other circumstances... But no, he hated her, and could not forget that for an instant. Then he saw the healing scar on her head, beneath her red hair, where his rock had gashed her. He did not know how to feel about that. It occurs to Kamar that this may be one of the ladies his father has in mind for him to marry, and that this is a device of his father's to persuade him. Kamar does not like such strategy, but Budur is so beautiful that he is instantly won over. He resolves to tell his father in the morning that he is now amenable to the union. Meanwhile, he will not soil his future wife by unfair attentions during her repose. Kamar lies down and sleeps again. Almost, a peep escaped from a member of the audience. Would a virile young man actually do this, in the presence of a lovely and sleeping young woman? Well, perhaps one who had refrained from marrying any eligible girl because of the principle of pursuing his own life, and who would actually suffer confinement rather than permit his will to be abridged. It was, at least, an ideal for the audience to ponder. Stile felt, with a certain smugness, that he had faced just such a test in his contact with the Lady Blue, and had reacted similarly. Stile lay down, relieved. It could have been much worse. The script could have required an act of love. That sort of thing was part of the game, but it might have washed Stile out of the tourney at this point. How could he do any such thing with his enemy, regardless of the script? The Ifrit now changes into a bug and bites the Princess Budur in a tender spot, the computer continued. Stile almost thought it had been about to say that the Moon of Moons was bitten on a moon. He had to suppress a role-destroying mirth. In tight situations, even deadly serious ones, minor things could seem impossibly funny. She wakes, while Kamar remains under the enchantment of sleep. Red went through the sequence. She is amazed to find this strange man in her bed. At first horrified, she soon realizes that his presence has occasioned her no harm. She is impressed. He is the handsomest man she has ever seen. Again, there was not even the hint of a snicker from the audience. She concludes that her father has placed him here to show her what she has been missing. She is moved. She calls herself a fool for her prior intransigence. Had she but known, this is the kind of man she could love. She attempts to rouse him, but he sleeps on. Stile thought Red might shake him violently, trying to do him surreptitious harm, but she was careful, adhering to the script. She knew she was ahead on scoring, and had merely to maintain that lead. Princess Budur, overcome by passion for the prince, embraces him and kisses him, pleading for him to awaken. Even this directive Red got through, while Stile lying like a dead man. But as she brushed his left ear with her lips, she whispered, "I will torture thee for this indignity, foul man. Never has thy ilk touched me before in other than combat." She hated men. Not just him, but all men. She was a true Amazon. That remark from the audience must have stung her fully as much as it stung him. For her, an act of love with a man was impossible. She considered the entire opposite sex to be ilk. Yet, she was a consummate actress, as so many women seemed to be. No one in panel or audience had any hint of her true feeling. She had a will of iron. She would do whatever it took to win this round. Stile could not even play upon her anger, for the script was too specific. He was officially sound asleep. Finally, she gives up. She clasps him tightly and falls asleep. Red put her left arm across his chest, snuggled close, set her lips against his left ear again, and slowly, methodically, bit into it. Stile could not jump or scream, for that would have cost him more points. Yet her position was such that her foul was not evident to the panel. She seemed to be kissing his ear, a natural enough reaction for the role. Stile had to hold himself frozen while the pain burgeoned. This was indeed going to be a rough game. This display of emotion wins the wager for the Afrit, but Budur showed more passion for Kamar than he did for her. Satisfied, the Afrits carry the prince back to his own chamber and depart. They have no further interest in this matter. The light dimmed and Stile returned to his side of the stage. His ear felt huge and throbbing, but he could not touch it. Kamar had no reason to. He had to admit Red had outplayed him again. She had fouled him and gotten away with it. This narrative was following the classic formula. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl. Surely boy would regain girl before it was done. Stile hoped he would have opportunity to gain the lead. It depended on the kind of dancing and acting required. There wouldn't be more close contact with Red for a while, at least. When the prince and princess wake in the morning, they are chagrined to find themselves alone. Each has fallen in love with the other, but neither knows the identity of the nocturnal visitor. They perform the dance of separation, symbolizing the pain and confusion of this mysterious loss. Stile and Red danced together, apart. She on her part of the stage, he on his. This was challenging. They had to coordinate their motions, aesthetically, also keeping time to the music the computer provided. As with the harmonica duet, this was a test of integration as well as of individual skill. Stile, good at this sort of thing, expected to score well, but he had another nasty surprise. Red seized the lead, going into a series of deep knee bends. Stile was unable to match this, as she well knew. If he flexed his knees that far, he would not be able to maintain his balance, and the pain would be prohibitive. She might take a minor penalty for pushing the lead, but he was suffering a major penalty for not matching her style. Red was still gaining points. So, it continued. Red was an excellent dancer, and she had good knees, and she played her advantage unscrupulously well. She really knew how to make a man look awkward. She made quick shifts of figure that threw him out of phase, but it looked as though he was the one who had miskeyed, not her. She initiated a sequence, then terminated it just as he was emulating it, making him look stupid again. And this was all good tactic, in the game. When the judges saw what she was doing, they would still be giving her points for her expertise in competition. Stile's own considerable skill was largely eroded by his incapacity. This game was becoming hopeless. They wended their way through the long quest as Kamar searched the civilized world for his love, and she longed to receive news of him. Stile continued to lose headway. Members of the audience were quietly vacating their places, satisfied they knew the outcome. The Oracle, he realized, had not promised him victory. He had merely juggled the Lady Blue's oracular message to ensure his survival after this encounter. He actually had no guarantee of victory. His oath was only an oath, vital to him, but no guarantee of success. Yet there had seemed to be developing purpose in his life, however it had been shaped. The way his need to meet the herd stallion had brought him and the Lady Blue to the little folk, and he had acquired the platinum flute, lost to the stallion anyway, and delivered the flute to Clef. Maybe all coincidence, but if Clef was indeed the foreordained, then it all had meaning. Stile had been a vital part of that chain, a part that had ended with the relaying of the flute. Stile could have become surplus thereafter, no longer needed in the chain, an actor whose part had terminated. So purpose was no answer. He was on his own, and in trouble. What use to survive this dance if his loss of the game meant only that Red would have him assassinated shortly after he sired a son for the Lady Blue? At last the dance led Prince Kamar to Princess Budur. He had traversed the civilized world, taking many months to locate her. It was to be an ecstatic reunion, as the lovers joined after a quest that had often seemed hopeless. Stile abhorred the notion, but forced himself to carry on. Whatever he might wish, this was evidently not to be the occasion for his destruction of Red. There were, of course, various definitions of destruction. Perhaps Red was destined to win the tourney, become a citizen, and destroy herself in riotous living. Yet that would not be Stile's agency. Why would the Oracle warn her that Blue would destroy Red, if Blue was merely one hurdle among many to be overcome? The whole thing now suggested a misinterpretation of the Oracle's meaning. Where did that leave him? With his oath of vengeance. It didn't matter what the Oracle predicted. Stile would make an end of Red, one way or another, and he would not return to love the Lady Blue until he did. If he could not accomplish this through the game, it would have to be some other way. But it would be, because he had sworn. Right now, he would play this round out as well as he could, taking his loss with the same dignity he had taken his wins. Yet as the dance drew to its close, Stile's case looked hopeless. He was so far behind on points that only a figurative knockout punch could salvage a win. And this was no boxing match. How much he would have preferred that boxing match. Red was proceeding smoothly to a victory that wasn't even close. Then, Stile had an idea. Perhaps he could, after all, score a knockout. It would require discipline and courage that strained the limits of his ability, and there was no guarantee he could make it work. But from what he had learned of Red's nature, it was a chance. Stile nerved himself for it. "And now at last the lovers are rejoined," the narrator said. "They rush together. Kamar takes Budur in his arms." Stile had the wit to stand on the raised back portion of the stage, so that his height almost matched Red's. Now he concentrated, throwing himself into a half-trance. "Pretend she is the Lady Blue," he told himself, "the woman you love." "Their expression of joy and love knows no bounds," the narrator continued. This was the finale. The Lady Blue, and almost he made himself believe. As they went into the concluding dance of rapture, Stile threw himself into the full feeling of it, conveying to audience, panel, and Red himself the power of his passion. He was ready to act out the full spirit of this reunion, to love her in the dance exactly as Prince Kamar loved Princess Budur. Internal rebellion seethed in him, but he suppressed it savagely. He could destroy his enemy only by loving her. And she had to go along with it. How could a princess, moon of moons, reunited with her lost love after extended and agonized separation, do other than accede to his natural desire? Stile had seized the lead, and what a lead it was. Now the audience caught on. "Do it," someone whispered audibly, and the computer did not react, because this was a legitimate conclusion of this script. What was a dance except the rationalization and dramatization of human passion? Red was not slow to catch on. Seeing herself trapped in this interpretation, anathema to her, she broke. Instead of kissing him, she bit him. Blood flowed from his lip. Instead of accepting his embrace, she struck him with fist and elbow. The members of the judging panel began to react. Some violence was permissible in lovemaking. Was this merely an interpretation? "Beloved," Stile whispered to her. Red's face transformed to the semblance of a demon. She caught Stile's head in her hands and shoved it hard against the wall. Stile's consciousness exploded in sparkles, but he offered no resistance. Furious, she threw him to the floor. He feared a back injury, but he lay there. She started throttling him, so angry that tears were flowing from her eyes. "I'll kill thee! I'll kill thee!" she raged. "Thou dost dare love me? Death be the penalty!" She was a creature of hate, and deserved her fate. Yet even as her maniacal fury lashed him, Stile felt regret, knowing that she, like himself, was a victim of circumstance, of fate. Some unknown party had set them both up for this cruel denouncement. As Stile sank into unconsciousness, he felt the stasis field take hold, and knew that he had won. His difficult, desperate ploy had been effective against the man-hater. Even for victory in the tourney, even for citizenship, even for life itself, she could not bring herself to submit to this ultimate humiliation, to be loved, even in pretense, by a man. Red had disqualified herself. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of Blue Adept. Aelos, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for continuing to support the Twitch stream. So much appreciated. So, guys, we have reached the end of the Blue Adept. Stile has indeed managed to destroy the Red Adept. By what means? By pretending to love her, which she could not take. And so attacked him and disqualified herself. All right, guys. So today is Tuesday. I want to say very likely this Saturday, I will start book 3 of the Apprentice Adept series. Because you know you want it. You know you need it. And what could be better than book 3? Book 2 in its entirety will be up on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArminius. For your listening pleasure at any point in here, book 3 is Juxtaposition. So funny, the character of the man-hater. Gotta hand it to Red. She was creative in her attacks and insanity. Yeah, is that not the truth? She played it well. She played it very well. Unfortunately, Stile played it better in the end. Go Stile. So we will start most likely this Saturday, Juxtaposition, book 3 of the Apprentice Adept series. Now, after I finish these 3, I may move on to something else for a little while, because I try to only do about 3 books in a series before I switch it up a little bit. We may come back later and do 4, 5, and 6 and things like that. But if you guys happen to know any authors out there who would like to have their book read on stream, please have them reach out to me. Let me know. I'm happy to look at just about anything to be able to do so, to read it, get them some views or some anything for their books. If not, if I don't have anything that comes up when it's time after Juxtaposition, then after Juxtaposition, then I will probably stick with Piers Anthony, and I may go into something different within Piers Anthony, and I'll take a look and we'll see how that goes. So we've got a little while left because there's going to be some likely some a month or two while we are reading Juxtaposition, and maybe a month if I'm doing it twice a week. We'll see how it goes. But again, if you have anybody who wants to have something read on their stream, have them reach out to me. They can reach out to me through YouTube, through Twitch. My website, maloneyvoiceover.com, is my voiceover website. They can reach out to me through there. There's an email through there that they can reach out to me. Various ways, because I love doing these reading streams, and I'd love to be able to help promote lesser-known authors as well. In fact, I may actually look at reading a book. Let's see if I can find it in here. God, I've got so many books in my Kindle. Where is it? I know you're in here. A book written by a friend of mine a while ago. Let's see, where is it? I know you're in here. Let's see. A Fading Wind by Melody Kravoisera. After Juxtaposition, if I don't get anything else, maybe I'll read that one, and then we'll go into another series. A Fading Wind is just one book, so you are very welcome. I am so happy to be able to be some entertainment for you guys, and you guys help me to practice my craft, and again, hopefully promote some books that maybe some of you guys haven't read that you would like to get out there and read. Anyway, I hope you guys all have yourself a fantastic rest of your Tuesday, or if it's Wednesday already, a fantastic Wednesday, and a good rest of your week until I do see you again. If I am going to do a story time this Saturday, I will post something up on my YouTube page in the posts there just to let you know that I am going to do so. I will decide by Friday, one way or the other, if I am doing so. And if I am, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribing to YouTube is free, by the way. You'll get the notification that a post went up there by me. So you'll know that I'm coming in and starting Juxtaposition on Saturday. And even if you miss it, I'm going to record the chapters and put it up on the YouTube channel. So you can always stop out there and check it out. Thank you all so much. The greatest gift that you can give me is the gift of your time. And I appreciate that you guys gave me the gift of yours this evening, whether it was for 5 minutes or whether it was for 3 hours. Thank you so much for being here with me. Look for these chapters to be up on the YouTube by end of night tonight. And I hope to see you guys all again really soon. Have a great night, everybody.